Responding, copy possible power lines down.
All units, be advised, the town of Paradise is under a mandatory evacuation. The town of Paradise is under a mandatory evacuation.
The Campfire burned into the record books as the state's deadliest and most destructive fire ever. The town of Paradise was lost in just hours, along with Concal, Magalia, and the neighborhoods around them. 85 dead, more than 14,000 homes gone, an entire community burned to the ground.
The fire took everything. Paradise is gone.
As investigations into the wildfire commenced, it became clear that PG&E, the electric company, was at least partially at fault for the wildfire for not turning off the power. It was then the flood of lawsuits against PG&E began. As a direct and legal result of the actions and/or omissions of the defendants
negligence
plaintiffs suffered
was a
damages to
substantial
their real
factor in
and/or
causing
personal
plaintiffs in
property.
the class's damage.
PG&E's failure to properly inspect and maintain the tower.
Plaintiffs bring this cause of action for trespass
Fourth
against
cause of
all
action for
defendants.
premises
The
liability.
corporation has once again allowed its fire
Eighth
prevention
cause of
policies
action,
to be
violation
controlled
of
by
Health and
shareholder
Safety Code
profits.
Section
Second cause of action for negligence
13007,
against
brought by
all
multiple
defendants.
plaintiffs
Respect
class
economic
against all
relationships
defendants.
of plaintiffs and class members.
Plaintiffs demand a jury trial.
The question then became, how would PG&E be held liable for all of these lawsuits?
California law follows the doctrine of inverse condemnation for suits against utilities, which is essentially strict liability. In a lawsuit, victims would only need to prove a utility's equipment caused a wildfire, not that it acted unreasonably. And even before the Campfire, PG&E knew plenty about the wildfire risks of their operations, and knew that they could face potentially crushing liability.
Nobody thought PG&E was going to be able to survive litigation, and including PG&E, which is why it filed for bankruptcy. And that really threw everything into really uncharted territory. It was sort of sent everything into a tailspin. I'm not a bankruptcy lawyer, so now taking these claims on behalf of all of the fire victims that we represented, we had no idea what to expect or how to navigate really a process that hadn't even been laid out yet.
Victims were deprived of their day in court, but the bankruptcy settlement gave hope that compensation was on the horizon. But this came with its own complications. As a part of their bankruptcy deal, PG&E established two trusts: a subrogation wildfire trust to compensate insurance claims, and the Fire Victims Trust to compensate victims. The insurance companies received $11 billion in cash, while the victims only received $6.5 billion in cash.
Subrogation Trust, which is the insurers, they settled first, so they got $11 billion in cash. By the time the trust, PG&E funded the money for the trust, they didn't have $13.5 billion in cash. It is very complicated to deal with the stock all the time. It would be a lot simpler if we had had all cash, like most deals I've worked on, but we didn't. So we do the best we can.
At PG&E, we are building a stronger, safer, and more affordable energy system for your community.
And based on how the claims process is rolled out and where things are, and there's still a lot of uncertainty. And I don't know how folks are going to feel at the end of the day when this claims process ends.
There's one crucial actor who hasn't been mentioned yet. As PG&E was dodging lawsuits and evading payouts, they were also cozying up with regulators and legislators.
Have you reconsidered giving the money back to PG&E that they contributed to your campaign?
No, PG&E was convicted of 6 federal felonies in 2016. After that, you took more than $200,000 to help get elected. How should people trust you to be running the show to come up with the solutions?
I wish you luck with whatever you're working on, but that's a strange question. So.
Well, I know it's a strange question.
A doomed lawsuit, a controversial trust, and a powerful state-backed monopoly. Was justice carried out? It's easy to say that the system here was serving power, not justice. Just look at all the tools that PG&E deployed to shield itself from liability. They declared bankruptcy to evade $30 billion in potential lawsuit liability. Their trust compensation process is slow and frustrating. A portion of the payouts depend on the whims of the stock market, and they've captured government officials to help them with all of it. Adding to the injustice is that by avoiding the legal system, victims were unable to access an important purpose of tort law, a venue where victims could have their day in court to share their stories. But at the end of the day, the actors in power can't be imputed with all of the responsibility here. They were all beholden to the existing systems of public-private utilities, inverse condemnation, and bankruptcy law. Because of these actors and the systems they operate in, PG&E was too big to fail, and too big to be held accountable to the victims whose lives were forever scarred by their actions. There is much to reach for in California for broader system rebuilding in utilities and wildfire liability. One thing is certain, though. We have much to learn from the hope displayed by the victims of the Campfire in rebuilding, where they're rebuilding not just systems, but their entire lives.
And listening to people tell their stories is really, it's amazing. They're just very nice, resilient people